Hey folks, it's been a while, but quick catch up, especially on the brink of this 2-day FCA Amendment Bill summit. Well, it's not a summit, it's a webinar or whatever it is. No one seems to really know, and no one seems to know if it's actually going to continue, if it's going to be cancelled. So who knows? But we'll keep you updated with regards to that anyway. But just a bee in my bonnet, and something that's been really grating me ever since this proposed amendment bill saw the light of day a couple of months ago. Well, in fact, when it saw the light of day in 2018 already, since this latest version is really just a clumsily redraft of the previous one that's been somehow miraculously made worse than it was back then, when it was outright rejected by the public and stakeholders, limiting sport shooters and hunters to a certain amount of guns. I mean, we've covered the self-defense angle very thoroughly, but the 6-gun limit, like 2 rifles, 2 shotguns, 2 handguns, that's all you're allowed to have. I own upwards of 10 guns at this stage. Whole whack of them, semi-auto rifles, different calibers, different setups. I use all of these rifles throughout, and including 4 handguns. I use all my rifles, all my handguns in sport shooting events throughout the year. Various types of sport shooting events, they are rigged for different purposes, different uses. I have a use for every one of these things. Believe you me, I would not be spending the money on these expensive tools if they were going to be safe queens and just lie there and not be used. That would be, especially under the present economic time, suicidal, fiscally suicidal. It also is obviously in my best interest to, if I'm not using them right now, to get rid of some of my guns. And despite everything I've been through the past year and a half, I didn't sell a single one. For simple reason that I use the things, and especially now with the instruction happening, my way of maintaining my skill set, well, even without me instructing, but a way for me to maintain and manage my skill set and improve it, is to train with these guns and practice with these guns, all of them, as much as time allows, time constraint being, and financial constraint, ammo cost being a major thing. But there's nothing that prevents you from dry firing. There's nothing that prevents you from using laser training cartridges, as I do. There are many training solutions that are affordable that augment you going to the range and doing live fire practice. So you train your skills at home with dry fire, and then you go cement those skills and anchor them with live fire practice at the range. I use these guns way more than my participation reports that I attach to my renewals to prove to the authorities that I still use all these guns. But this is the game we play, so we all play the game. We participate with these guns, we keep record of our participation, we submit that record of their use with the renewals to prove to the authorities that we are indeed still using these guns. We've bought and paid for and licensed and owned and looked after and maintained and cherished for 10 years plus, if it's a sport shooting weapon. We have this extensive body of evidence that we gather and rigorously maintain to prove our need for these things. And there's lots of things we do that we cannot prove need. I mean, every time I dry fire at home, I don't go log it as an activity. I mean, strictly speaking, I should, but come on, that's getting a bit bloody ridiculous. No one on the other side of the fence seems to care about these things. They automatically assume, for some reason it would seem, that we just want to own lots of guns and not use them because we like having these expensive toys in the safe, just to take them out once a year and look at them. And I mean, if that's your jam, if you're a collector, there's nothing wrong with that. But the assumption that sport shooting and hunting firearms are just, stuff, and even worse, that they're a national security threat, is just utterly ridiculous. And that's the one thing that I sometimes feel, and I believe there are associations or organizations out there directly addressing that specific thing, but that's a huge irritation to me, is the fact that the authorities are allowed to make these sorts of assumptions. We persistently and constantly have to prove our need for our own property, at risk of losing this property if they decline something. And that's nonsense. That's a strong debate and conversation that we need to have, and that's a story that definitely deserves a lot more emphasis than it's presently receiving.